All right, welcome in, everybody. It is a Thursday edition of Sports Daily, which is always jam-packed with fun here on KFH. Jacob Albracht, Paul Savage with you. Jad Chambers producing. He's got the IHOP hotline open, 869-1240. It will be a very busy IHOP hotline today. Thursdays are always big days for guests. Coming up a little later in this segment, we'll run down our buddy Tim Fitzgerald, our K-State insider. Certainly some K-State news worth talking about that we'll get into. We've got Chelsea Messenger coming on board for her weekly visit. Perfect timing because we've got the NBA Finals starting up tonight. So we'll talk to Chelsea about all those betting opportunities. We know she's always on the baseball model as well. So we'll look at those with Chelsea. Coming up in the second hour, another Wichita Sports Hall of Fame induction. Paul, is that the last one we're doing, or do we?
Well, we're working on one, possibly two more. I'm struggling to get them locked in and loaded. So this might be the last one, but I'm shooting for a couple more.
We've got that. So those three guests lined up for the show today. Of course, we'll get you ready for the NBA Finals. Other news to get into that we'll do. So a wide open show today, but a busy show today. Thanks for watching us on our video stream on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitter. Let's jump right into it. Let's start with a little K-State news today with our buddy Tim Fitzgerald.
He's got all the insight on what you want to know and maybe some of what you don't want to know. Here's K-State insider Tim Fitzgerald.
All right, and we welcome in Fitz for another visit this week. Perfect timing as we get big news for the basketball team. Yesterday, Naquan Tomlin pulls his name out of the draft and returns, and I guess on the same day, we also see maybe news that pertains to K-State. Ernest Uday, the Kansas transfer, chooses TCU. K-State had been rumored in the mix for him. But as we look at this offseason, Tim, will there be a bigger move, do you think, than the return of Naquan Tomlin?
There better be. I mean, they have some open scholarships. I'm sure they've got some stuff cooking. Uday caught me a little off guard. I thought they were really interested in him. I assumed, let's put it that way, that they were interested in him, but I didn't hear much smoke about him once he left his Kansas City visit. So we'll see. We'll see how it all pans out, and if they get these slots filled. I just keep coming back to last year, and I've got to believe that there's a plan at work here. We just don't know the plan because they sure had a plan last year.
You know, when you look at this situation we find ourselves in, Fitz, and we're trying to make sense of where we're at, where K-State's at, where is whoever your team is, where are they at? And with the portal, we don't have enough experience to know, is this a good place to be? Is this a place where you will fill it up? Or are we past the time? See, there's so much that we do not know because we haven't done it for very long about this portal stuff that we're going to be learning for the next couple of seasons. But right now, I mean, are you one that when you look up and down this roster where it is right now, that you believe that this is a roster that would be able to compete in the upper half of the Big 12 conference as it is now put together?
Well, not being totally familiar with what everyone else is doing right now in the Big 12, I'd be pretty iffy on that. As competitive as the Big 12 is, I think they got to add some parts here. And it gets back to how much does Jerome Tang want to rely on young guards, because he's got some good ones coming in, but does he want those guys to be in the starting lineup and regular players? I think he learned a lot from what's going on in college basketball by looking at who's going to the Final Four with getting deep in the tournament with experienced guards, and then seeing his friend Scott Drew at Baylor not really do much damage last year in the postseason with young guards. And in fact, that one young guard that apparently, with a potential lottery pick in the draft. So I think he knows he needs to add some parts, particularly at guard.
It'll be interesting. I mean, this was about the point, if I remember it right, where they really started to splash in. But I mean, let's be honest about last year's class too. Let's be brutally honest about it. Marquise Noel, right? Like at this point, we were like, yeah, he's a nice player with experience, but we were all concerned about Nigel Pack, right? And Keontae Johnson comes, but outside of Keontae Johnson, of the players coming up, we didn't really know anything about it. None of these guys were top-ranked portal guys. They were good players. We knew that. They were experienced players. But I think it's a reminder that we're probably still just a little bit early. And panic is the wrong word, but for concern, just a little bit early for that. Just based on what they did last year, but can you really catch lightning in a bottle twice in a row? I don't know. I'm concerned. I'll be honest.
Yeah. I think that's a valid question. We all talk about Keontae and how important he was, and naturally he was very significant coming in as the last player to be added to the roster. And I will credit the coaches with most of Marquise's dramatic improvement. I think there was the right group of coaches for the right guy at the right place. But then you bring up the guys like David Gasson and Quan Tomlin and Desi Sills, and you can go down the list, Cam Carter, that I think if we look back at their recruitment, these guys ended up playing above what we thought they'd be. And I think that's a compliment to coaching too, and recruiting, and the fact that they were able to identify guys that had a higher upside that still hadn't been attained. And so if they can continue to do that, whether they get the Keontaes or not, if they can continue to do that, this will be a very competitive team.
You bring up a good point. I'm going to just sort of build on what you just said. And that is, yeah, you're right. No, you're right. Coach Tang and his staff did a good job of getting a lot out of kids that frankly, people like yourselves who are really knowledgeable, you thought to yourself, boy, he's getting more out of that kid than I thought he could get. But there's something deeper with this program that I sense, and that is the sense of family, the sense of being, the sense of being wanted. And that is what Coach Tang and this staff, I think they kind of radiate that. And I think that attracts kids. And I think that's going to be, as time goes on, one of the biggest factors in the success of K-State will be family. And this is something that Coach Tang does naturally. He doesn't have to make himself do that. He does this. That's who he is. And I think that's going to end up being big for this team. Or am I missing something?
No, I think you're right. I think the ability for them to find guys that have a sense of team over sense of self,
yes,
is really important. And the fact that they had guys throughout this roster who knew their roles, and maybe their roles were, hey, be the star, Marquise and Keontae, go do your thing, or maybe they were the smaller roles or even roles in practice, and people embrace those roles. That this is what I do to help this team. It may not be public and it may not be dramatic like we see these guys with these passes and dunks, but this is how I can help this team get ahead. And I think if he can continue to find kids that buy into that, they'll be pretty well off. This is going to be a really good program for years.
But again, and I have full faith too. What are the chances that they catch lightning in a bottle? And I guess that's where it comes back around. And it really only matters what the expectation is, right? Competitive, top half, that's all one thing. But I think it's totally unreasonable to expect K-State to be in contention at this moment to win the Big 12, right? To make it back to the Final Four. I just everything went right. So what is an expectation if only some things go right and some things don't go right? Are we okay with top half of the Big 12? Are we okay with, just reaching the NCAA tournament? How much has the expectation shifted in, after 1 year, one amazing year for the program?
Yeah, it's a great point. There's no catching anyone off guard this upcoming season. They'll see you coming. And I think maybe K-State did catch some people off guard a year ago early in that schedule. They didn't realize what a ceiling K-State had. But I think trying to keep this kind of expectation within the locker room and maintaining it is a great challenge. But I think, we should all understand that Coach Tang apparently knows how to put together a team. The circumstances this year are a little bit different with the portal being closed and only, at this point, grad transfers can be new people to transfer. We've got guys coming out of the draft right now that have backed out that are potential players. We'll just, again, it's June 1. It's early for this process in some ways, and let's see what shakes out here over the next 6 months or 6 weeks.
Well, what's standing out to you with regards to basketball portals, all the things going on inside the Big 12? Is there any team that you're going, man, these guys are got it together, or somebody who is, you think to yourself, man, are they going to have student body tryouts before they're able to play a game? I mean, what's going on in the Big 12? What are you perceiving? What's going on? Tell us what you see at this moment.
Again, I'm just always so impressed how Bill Self can read. He's a master of this.
Gosh.
Like what I was talking about, understanding the type of players you need to bring in that buy into the team over self, and well, that's a different meaning at KU. Team over individual, and it's incredible to watch it every year. I think they're going to be the team to beat, no matter what their losses were on the roster from a year ago.
It is incredible. It is. I agree. It's one of the things about him that's so impressive. Like, the game has changed completely, yet they have quickly mastered this new game. Like, nobody balances recruiting, portal. Like, nobody balances it better. And they've always, no matter what the game is, they get that blend of guys. All right, let's talk a little about other happenings there at K-State. Tim, I suppose Gene Taylor's hasn't left for Iowa just yet. What is the level of unease right now in Manhattan with the Iowa jobs looming?
I think the talk is in college athletics that they'll promote from within at Iowa, but until that's done, there'll be a little unease. I did one of my daily deliveries last week on Gene just got a raise a year or so ago before President Myers stepped down, but when I look at the guy retiring at Iowa being just a hair over $1 million and realizing how much better a job Gene has done than him, I think he probably should get that bump up over that threshold, even in these kind of times of limited resources. But making sure Gene Taylor doesn't go is the key to probably keeping your two main head coaches. And so far, everything Gene's done has been pretty masterful. I saw a tour of the new volleyball facility, and guys, this is going to be one of the nicer volleyball-only dedicated facilities in the nation. It's really impressive. And that'll be opening up, I think, September 1. So, he's just done an incredible job to this process of trying to grow the individual programs while building millions and millions of dollars through fundraising for projects across the athletic campus.
What's it mean for this football program that now you have head coach, you have coordinators, you have everybody? It appears to be locked in. Most of the coordinators and, of course, the head coach all got big bumps in salary, are locked in. What does that say about this football program, and what do you think it means for this program moving forward?
They've got something, an opportunity here at Kansas State that I hate to use the word unique because it's overused, but this conference right now is in flux. Over the last 10 plus years, it's lost half of its original members. And this last departures of Oklahoma and Texas, are the final of the national big brands from this conference. And really this conference now has shown to be competitive without the brands. The brand name doesn't make you better. It just makes you maybe people more aware of you. And Kansas State seems poised in football, particularly basketball too, in some ways, to be one of the programs that emerges out of this storm of the Big 12 into the new 12, whether it's 12, 16, or 20, as a top performing football program. And I think Chris Kleiman sees that opportunity as very tangible and attainable for Kansas State because of where they're at right now today, heading into the season of 14 members.
So as we talk about membership, Colorado, they're headed to the Big 12, right? I mean, it sure looks like Colorado's ready to jump, doesn't it?
Yeah, every indication is. It's been that way for a while. I've suspected that the members are giving Silent George the Pac-12 commissioner as much time as possible, but I think June 1 might have been a quiet deadline for a lot of programs that, look, if you don't have anything to show us by June 1, we have every reason in the world to be concerned about the future of this conference. If what you're hearing in terms of numbers isn't good enough to keep us together, then quit holding us hostage while we wait for you to tell us something. So I think June's going to be very active. And I have a weird feeling that either Colorado will jump and there'll be a big thud and nothing much happens after that, or it sets off a chain reaction of chaotic things around the country, and could it even ripple into the ACC's troubles get stirred back up, that someone might file a lawsuit to break that grant of rights under the idea that it was fraudulent in the way it was presented, because what they signed did not turn it all out to be what it was.
Obvious rumors are if Colorado jumps, you're going to get the four corner universities, Arizona State, and Utah to jump as well. And there's talk with the remaining members of the Pac-10. Obviously, you've got Cal, you might have Stanford, you got Oregon, and you got Washington all going to, rumored maybe to go to the Big Ten. We don't know, but that's sort of what the rumors are. If that happens, what happens with Oregon State and Washington State? I'm just kind of thinking outside the box. Do they become attractive to the Big 12? I'm just asking. I haven't heard anything about it. I'm not saying anything's out there. I'm saying, what would that say to Tim Fitzgerald about those schools and the Big 12? Anything? Does it rock your boat a little?
No, not at all.
Not at all. Okay. Well,
look, those two schools are great sports schools, with great sports fans.
Right.
And that's the same situation Kansas State and Iowa State might have been in 2 years ago if the Big 12 had finally come apart. So there's a great deal of sympathy there. But right now, the Big 12 needs to be worried about the Big 12. And the next step is, of course, that Western expansion. But the question I keep coming back to is that, does that mean they're going to add 3 or 4 schools? There's some people thinking they'll add more than 4. I just don't see any way. That you want to be able to fill the fourth window, that late night kickoff that you can't do right now. That's what brings the value of these schools. What you don't want to do is adopt the Pac-12's problems by bringing in too many schools and then having too much of a presence, from the Rockies west, so to speak. So do they go add 3 schools right now and look for a 4th school in the East? That would mean to me that they're thinking long-term about how to balance this conference geographically in a sense, in a time period when we don't really think about geography anymore. But I think there's real symmetry for this conference in the short term of having 4 schools out west, 4 schools out east, 4 schools in the old Big 8, and 4 schools in Texas or the old Southwest Conference. And that makes a lot of sense. And then maybe if the ACC comes apart, they add 4 more out east and get groupings of 4 in the Northeast and 4 in the Southeast. We'll see. If they could pull that off and have a coast-to-coast conference, I will just be, it'll be a great setup for everyone involved. You'll get to play a lot of teams every year in every sport right in your neighborhood with the groupings. But again, I come back to this also. Look, okay, let's say Colorado goes, and then we expect Arizona to go. Arizona State and Utah hesitate. And if you're Bray Yormark, I don't think you're stopping there. I think you look right over their heads to San Diego State, who's apparently won approval to come in at a full share into the Big 12. I think there's going to be some Pac-12 schools that thought, in the scenario you laid out earlier, they're going to be untouchable. They'll be in a conference, and I think we might come down to the end, and there'll be like 5 Pac-12 schools that no longer have a conference, and they're going to have to scramble and figure out what they're going to do.
Yeah, it's coming. I don't know when. The timing of all this is really interesting, but it's coming. I mean, something's going to happen, I think, this month. I'm with you. June feels heavy to me. All right, Fitz. Well, we appreciate it. We'll keep our eye on this basketball roster. 1 down in Naquan Tomlin, and he could be a big one. I mean, he could be a lottery pick, right? I mean, Naquan could be a lottery pick if things go well, don't you think?
Yep. I mean, everyone talks about bringing in new stars. Naquan with a full off season with the staff could be a new star. I mean, he could be absolutely incredible to stop.
I agree. All right, Fitz, what do you guys have up at Go Power Cat right now?
A lot of video interviews, some really good football recruiting videos yesterday. We got more coverage today. Our podcast for the week drops around 11 a.m. It's up on your podcast providers right now. But yeah, as we get ready to muscle our way into a K-State camp weekend, we'll have lots of coverage on that coming up.
Okay. Well, check it out. GoPowerCat.com. You can check out Fitz's work at Life of Fitz on Twitter. Let's do it again next week.
Okay, sir. Good to be back on schedule.
All right. There goes Fitz. We'll have him again next week. Maybe we will have conference news. We'll almost certainly have K-State basketball news at that point. And we'll just be on Gene Taylor watch. Let's take a quick break. Paul and I will be back. We're going to bring in Chelsea Messenger. We're going to talk some betting. NBA Finals start tonight. What do we think? What else is out there in the betting world right now that Chelsea's interested in? She's our betting insider. We'll have her next. It's Sports Daily on a Thursday.
Your phone call is welcome. 869-1240. Sports Daily on 97.5 and 1240. KFH, Wichita's #1 sports talk radio.
Taco Bell and Pizza Hut invite you to tune in this Friday, June 2nd, for the live simulcast of the Riverfest Textron Aviation Opening Night Fireworks on 103.7 KEYN. Be sure to visit your local Taco Bell or Pizza Hut location, bringing you all the sights and sounds of Riverfest fireworks. Taco Bell and Pizza Hut. Tune in this Friday, June 2nd, for the live simulcast of the Riverfest Textron Aviation Opening Night Fireworks on 103.7 KEYN.
Celebrate your birthday at Hook and Reel Cajun Seafood Restaurant. Enjoy a free birthday boil, including your choice of seafood and sauce with corn, potatoes, and cheesecake. Get the details and eat for free on your birthday at Hook and Reel at Town East Square, Kellogg and Rock.
Baseball is in full swing. The free Odyssey app lets you listen to local coverage for the team you love. Live stream your favorite sports radio station or jump back and listen to the best segments on demand.
Don't forget we talk to the manager every Tuesday at 2 p.m.
Don't listen to some guy from the other side of the country tell you about your team. Live conversations for your local team. No matter where you are, your season, your Odyssey. Get in the game and download the free Odyssey app today.
I can't wait for what's next. Even with higher stroke risk due to atrial fibrillation, irregular heartbeat not caused by a heart health problem. Eliquis, the Bixavan tablets, reduces stroke risk. It's the #1 cardiologist prescribed blood thinner.
Don't stop taking prescription Eliquis without talking to your doctor, as this may increase your risk of stroke. Eliquis can cause serious and, in rare cases, fatal bleeding. Don't take Eliquis if you have an artificial heart valve, abnormal bleeding, or have antiphospholipid syndrome. While taking, you may bruise more easily or take longer for bleeding to stop. A spinal injection while on Eliquis increases risk of blood clots, which may cause paralysis, the inability to move. Get medical help right away for unexpected bleeding or unusual bruising, or if you have tingling, numbness, or muscle weakness. It may increase your bleeding risk if you take medicines such as aspirin products, NSAIDs, SSRIs, SNRIs, and blood thinners. Tell your doctor about all planned medical or dental procedures. Learn more at Eliquis.com or call 1-855-ELIQUIS.
Now listen up, I only have 30 seconds to tell you all about my first Netflix show, FUBAR, before this app self-destructs. I play a spy who on his last day on the job discovers that, surprise, his daughter is also a spy. Can you imagine that? Together, we both go commander to terminate a very bad guy. So put the cookie down, get to the chopper! And come with me if you want to watch FUBAR, only on Netflix. This Netflix ad has been terminated.
Finding great people to hire can be like trying to find a needle in a haystack, but not with ZipRecruiter. Their powerful matching technology delivers so many qualified candidates, it's like finding a needle in a needle stack. In fact, 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. For less hay and more needles, head to ZipRecruiter.
And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free. That's right, free. At ZipRecruiter.com/free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free.
At IHOP, we're introducing 2 new all-natural Black Angus steak burgers, the bourbon bacon jam and the jalapeno pick with a crunchy 4-cheese crisp. Get a combo with fries and a drink starting at $9. Only from IHOP. Bundle offer for a limited time only. Price and participation may vary. Restrictions apply.
Brought to you by IHOP. Visit IHOP today and try the delicious new steak burgers.
Ladies and gentlemen, Bob and Tom.
Let Josh do it. Okay, Josh, give it a shot. Hey, you're listening to the Bob and Tom Show. We're having a heck of a morning. And right now, we're rocking with the boys from Detroit. It's none other. Detroit. It's from New York City. Very famously from New York. They had a song called Detroit Rock City. That's why I thought they were. From there. All right, God, what do you do? All right, go ahead, Pat. 4 guys from Liverpool.
Bob and Tom in the morning and highlights all day long.
Bob and Tom mornings. This is 97.5 and 1240 KFH.
Ladies and gentlemen, Bob and Tom.
Hey, Reno, my girlfriend left me. She said, I'm always told un-American. Saw it coming from a kilometer away.
Dude, he sold it like a genius. And he's the whole thing.
Bob and Tom in the morning and highlights all day long.
Bob and Tom mornings. This is 97.5 and 1240 KFH.
Dude, you gotta hear this.
Go ahead. Sports Daily is on KFH.
On the line is the host of the Daily Tip and Odyssey sports betting insider, Chelsea Messenger. Insider calls are presented by BetMGM. Go check out all of the latest lines today on the BetMGM app. Also, be sure to check out the Daily Tip podcast for more of Chelsea Messenger analysis. Just search BetMGM wherever you find your podcasts.
All right, welcome back into Sports Daily, everybody. We do jump right into our weekly visit with Chelsea Messenger. Chelsea, how are you this morning?
Hey, doing well. Got an exciting game 1 of the NBA Finals on deck tonight, so I am very excited for that.
Let's start there. I see this, and look, I like Denver in the series as much as anybody else. But 8.5 points tonight? Are you kidding me? 8.5 points. If Miami's going to win games or a game or whatever, this feels like one that they have a shot in, but 8.5 points, even, money line aside, which is like almost 3-1 right now at BetMGM. 8.5 points to the Heat seems a little strange if we've watched anything happen this postseason. Am I crazy, or do you like Denver there?
I think this is why I'm not officially putting my money on Denver minus 8.5. But I think if I were to lean a direction, it would still be Denver. Look at Miami and look at the road that they have had to play to get to here. And look at the nice 4-lane highway that the Nuggets had to get to their place. So it just feels to me it's in a bad spot for Miami, a team that is probably going to be a little tired after a 7-game series with the Celtics. And also, I just feel like the series is a really bad matchup for the Heat, a team that doesn't have a ton of size. I know they have Bam Adebayo, but other than that, it's not a very big team. And I don't know what Coach Spo is cooking up to try to stop Nikola Jokic, but it feels like schematically there's no way to stop him. And even if you slow him down, you got Jamal Murray waiting in the wings to drop 35, it seems like, on any given night. So it just, every single time I relook at this series, because you're right, the Heat have been such a great story, and the 8.5 kind of jumps off the page. But to me, the matchup, just everything goes in the direction of the Nuggets for me. And even in the first game, I think the altitude's going to play a factor for a team that's already tired. You got to get used to that. And also, this is not the coaching mismatch that we saw against the Celtics. It's not Joe Mazzulla. It is Michael Malone, who's been unheralded, I think, by most people, but a very solid head coach. I think I would lean towards the Nuggets laying the 8.5.
And when you look at this particular game and you see this line going up and up and up and up, it gives me pause. I'll tell you what it makes me feel like, Chelsea. It makes me feel like there's something I don't know. And what I know is it's going to be a terrific finals. I really believe it's going to be. point spread or no point spread. I think it's going to be a really fun one to watch. But there's something that somebody knows with this point spread going up and up and up. There's something that we don't know. What is it?
I think it's just a mismatch that we're seeing that I think it's going to be really tough for the Heat to go against the Nuggets. And I know you guys are a big college basketball market, so I'm going to put it in those terms. Look at the NCAA tournament. Look at the run that San Diego State had in this last March Madness, where it was an incredible underdog run. They beat all these top teams, but then they ran into a buzzsaw in the national championship against a UConn team that looked so consistent in every single game. I'm pretty sure they weren't tested in a single game in the NCAA tournament. That's what this NBA Finals reminds me of. The Nuggets look consistent and dominant, because has there been one bad game for the Nuggets? It feels like no. Like, they've lost some games, but even in those losses, Nikola Jokic had 53 in one of those losses to the Suns. So it just feels like the Nuggets are the more consistent team, because if you look at the teams that the Heat have beaten, they've been very talented, but not very consistent. First series against the Bucks didn't have Giannis in game one. Also, Giannis was pretty banged up in most of those games. And then second series, they had the Knicks, who offensively are very challenged. The Nuggets are not that. Number one offense in the NBA postseason from the team. And then you see the Celtics, who have an extremely high ceiling, but are very inconsistent, and a rookie head coach. So I don't think it's the same level of competition. I think the Nuggets are a huge step up in competition, and kind of similar to what we saw from UConn facing off with San Diego State in the national championship for college basketball.
Well, let's look at it, put the point spread aside here and talk about other ways to look at this game. The two stars, Jimmy Butler and Nikola Jokic, both right now, their point totals at 27.5. Are there any props that have been standing out to you guys that look like values?
I think Jimmy Butler's going to be a little worn down, and I could be completely wrong here, because playoff Jimmy is definitely a thing. But in the head-to-head markets, you can get Jamal Murray head-to-head with Jimmy Butler, and he's plus 125. Jamal Murray is, to have more points than Jimmy Butler in game one. And I think the Heat are going to do their best, at least to try to slow down Nikola Jokic. But the problem is Nikola Jokic is such a talented passer that he's going to kick it out to Jamal Murray. And Jamal Murray has proven that he's good in the big moments. In fact, he's had 4 career 20-point fourth quarters, which is the most of any player in the last 25 years. So I know people don't talk about Jamal Murray, but he's absolutely on the same level as Jimmy Butler. So I'll take him in the head-to-head points category over Jimmy Butler tonight.
There's not been very much talk about elevation. Mile High City, Denver, Colorado, versus a team that's literally at 0. I mean, Miami is at 0 elevation. I'm wondering, do you have a feel for, right now the point spread is 8.5. How much of that 8.5 is elevation? We have not heard. I think I've only heard in all the banter that I've listened to over the course of this championship series being set up, I've only heard elevation mentioned one time, and I'm sitting there shaking my head. And from someone who's in Colorado quite a bit, listen, elevation affects everybody until you get used to it. How much of the point spread is elevation on as you would see it, or is there any way to even know that?
Maybe it's in there a little, but I think it's based on metrics, and stats. And I think even between the lines, this is a big mismatch. So I think it's based on that. And also the fact that Denver has been one of the better home teams in all of the NBA. I mean, that's why they're staying in the NBA Finals, but also they were an absolute wagon during the regular season. I want to say they're undefeated on their home court in the postseason as well. But you're right. It definitely is factored into the home court advantage, but that's always kind of put in the line as well. We saw it in the Celtics series where this line was about the same, 8.5 when facing the Heat. And normally I would say, hey, the Heat have been covering these big numbers, but I think this is a different level. So maybe I'm wrong here, and 8.5 seems like a lot, but if you think about the elevation and how that may wear them down over the course of the game, maybe you feel like the Heat, take them in the first half, but maybe lay off the full game.
Yeah, just the Nuggets have beaten the Heat twice this year. The game in Denver, they beat them by 5. The game in Miami, they beat them by 4. So take that for what it's worth. All right, Chelsea, anything else we need to look at with the finals? We've also got Stanley Cup. We've got baseball. Anything, though, that we can't miss with the NBA tonight?
I think if you like the Nuggets, you need to make your series bet right now. Because if you do get a Nuggets win tonight, those prices are going to go way up. So I think my official play is going to be the Nuggets in 5. I think it's the most popular pick, but I like it. I do think the Heat will steal one game. But I wouldn't be shocked if it's a sweep either. So I'm pretty hard on the Nuggets. I know. So it's either going to be a Nuggets sweep or Nuggets in 5. That is my prediction.
All right, anything from hockey or baseball we need to be on as we look? The Stanley Cup doesn't start for a little while. Baseball's, of course, every day. Any other bets we need to be making today?
I'll be on an under between the Padres and the Marlins, two of the worst offenses over the last month, and also really hot trends towards the under. Both of these teams have been super hot to the under in this situation. The Marlins, one of the best home teams to the under in all of baseball, and the Padres, despite all the big names in their lineups, one of the best under teams when playing on the road. Two good pitchers today. Joe Musgrove, somebody who's thrown a no-hitter. He's yet to find his stride this year, but still he gets to face a Marlins lineup that's bottom 5 in most statistical categories. And then on the other end, you have Jesus Luzardo, throwing for the Marlins. Their young ace can certainly miss some bats, one of the best strikeout throwers on that team. So I will take the under 8 between the Marlins and the Padres.
Well, I've got one quick question for our buddy Jad Chambers, who's sitting right across the table from me, flipping switches. And Jad, you got a question? I know you do about hockey. Hockey is his game. He loves hockey. But what's the question you have for Chelsea for a hockey bet?
I was just wondering if there was anything special on hockey bets going on that you've been keeping your eye on. I've been looking at this particular finals for quite a while now, and everything's been going so unexpectedly. I got to admit that, or I've got to expect that the betting world is just probably hasn't seen anything like this for a while. It's been kind of an unusual series so far, or tournament so far.
I would say hockey's probably one of those that we see underdog runs a little more frequently just because teams get hot down the stretch. Remember that season with the St. Louis Blues where they fired their head coach like half the way into the season and then went on to win the Stanley Cup. And we also have seen these huge upsets in the first round looking at the Bruins this year. I think a couple of years ago it was the Tampa Bay Lightning. But let me be clear, I'm not a hockey person. I don't have a ton of depth when it comes to knowledge. So this is people's money we're talking about. So I'm going to step to the side when it comes to hockey.
Well, there you go. Yeah. All right.
It is wild. That's why everybody loves the Stanley Cup playoffs. Hockey is a great sport that I don't know any of the players anymore. That time has passed me. But man, when they're on late and I'm down, working, I just flip it on and whatever it is entertaining. It has been wild though. Jad, I go to BetQL. That's what I do if I ever want to look at hockey.
Exactly.
I'm like, what do they think?
Right.
Well, Chelsea, we appreciate it. Any other can't misses today before we let you go?
I think that's about it. Small slate in baseball. Thursday's not the best day, but NBA Finals, I am very excited to see how this game turns out.
We are too. And we'll be, I think, 2, maybe 3 games in by the time we talk to you next week, see if there's any other ways to attack it. We appreciate it, Chelsea. Let's talk again next week.
Thanks for having me.
That was the host of the Daily Tip and Odyssey Sports Betting Insider, Chelsea Messenger. Insider Calls presented by BetMGM. Go check out all the latest lines today on the BetMGM app. Speaking of, even a wager that misses can still be a slam dunk with BetMGM, an authorized gaming partner of the NBA. Place a same-game parlay wager with 4 legs or more on any NBA Finals game. If you miss one leg, you'll receive up to $25 back in bonus bets. Just log into your account, download the BetMGM app, and sign up today to get started. Take the court with confidence when you parlay with the king of sportsbooks. BetMGM and GameSense remind you to play responsibly and offer resources to help you make appropriate choices. BetMGM.com for T's and C's. 21 plus, Kansas only. New and existing customer offer. All promotions are subject to qualification and eligibility requirements. Rewards issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets. Bonus bets expire 7 days from issuance. Please gamble responsibly. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-522-4700. in partnership with Kansas Crossing Casino and Hotel. We'll be right back. More Sports Daily coming your way.
97.5 and 1240 KFH.
Brought to you by Forever Lawn. Winter takes a toll on your garage door. Maybe the bolts are loose, or you need new weather stripping to keep out the hot and cold air. Trust Overhead Door Company of Wichita for your...
Sports Daily is on KFH.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Sports Daily on KFH. A couple news items here for you that we'll rip through and then get to our Wichita Sports Hall of Fame induction right off the top there. Sydney McKinney, 3 for 3. She's an All-American, Paul. First-team All-American from all 3 major softball publications. So Sydney McKinney continues and puts a cherry on top of her fantastic Shocker career. Congratulations to her. Again, she takes first team in all 3 of the major publications. No surprise there. Certainly deserved as one of the most decorated and influential star athletes at Wichita State of the last decade. Just continues to make Wichita State proud.
I got a sense something big is happening out there with softball, don't you? I mean, I just get that feeling.
Oh, yeah.
I see the crowds starting to really fill into that stadium. And man, I'll tell you what, something's going on, and something is good that's going on.
All right, so here's another news item for you that just came down. So out in Vegas, Kansas State's going to play a preseason tournament.
That is
right. And they're going to play USC, and it'll be on November 6th. So K-State, USC on November 6th. It will be the first ever college game for Bronny James. So Bronny James' first ever college game coming against K-State. How cool is that? That's awesome.
I think it's cool. I think it's a great chance to track down LeBron and get an autograph.
Well, look, it's cool. I hope, and I know it's not going to happen. And look, if there's anybody that's used to an inordinate amount of attention and, all of the stuff, it's Bronny James, who's had to deal with this forever, right? And has actually, flourished by all accounts and become a better basketball player. So congratulations to him. But, in a season that way too much attention is going to be paid to him unfairly, unless he lives up to the hype, which he absolutely could. It's going to be cool to see that first time K-State, because that's all anybody's going to talk about, right? It'll be one of the biggest stories of the college basketball season all year, but especially early in the year, his first college game, LeBron will be there and all that stuff, and it'll be against K-State. So that'll be pretty cool for Wildcat fans to just, you be a part of history to some degree.
Sure.
Even if he doesn't, he's probably not going to match his dad's career. Again, that's totally unfair, but just the hype and the circumstance and the pomp around it will be cool.
Right. One of the funny things is that you're a father, I'm a father, and we both have at least one son. And it's kind of interesting. The same thing will happen with Tommy Castor, our buddy, with his sons. But you look at that situation, and there isn't a father alive that doesn't want their kid to do better than they did. They want their kid to be much more successful than they were so that they can have that feeling of success and achievement. Not going to happen with LeBron's kid, is it? Not going to happen. I don't care what you say, what case you make, it'll never happen.
Yeah, let's not be unfair. Let's see him play out. Let's see it play out.
Well, come on, Jacob. Now, come on. Good.
I've never... Paul, you ever seen Bronny play basketball?
Not a minute. I haven't seen a clip of him.
Let's watch him play.
Okay.
Let's evaluate him after he plays a game.
Fair enough.
Because I haven't either. I haven't watched his high school tape or anything like that. I don't have time.
I have no idea.
But I'll be watching that day and for his college career, and I root him all the best. I think the dynamic of father son, it strikes a chord for us because we're dads. We love it. How could you not love it?
Right.
Okay, so. Another news item here before we take our break into the second hour. Lauren Hibbs releases a statement yesterday, and very respectful and everything, and all the emotions that go into it are clearly there. We've seen the players transferring all those things, but at the end of it, Paul, and I think it answers a question a lot of people had. I'm going to read you the end of his statement here. I'm a coach, mentor, and educator. I've dedicated my entire professional life to the development of student athletes on the field, in the classroom, and in life. Our family left a great situation in Charlotte and came to Wichita to help turn this program around in whatever capacity was needed. Any assumptions about my intent are just that, assumptions. I have been 100% all in to continue as the head baseball coach at Wichita State beyond this season. Unfortunately, despite my desire to continue as head coach, Shocker Baseball will have a new leader. I wish Wichita State baseball success going forward.
Right.
It actually answers 2 questions. One, Lauren Hibbs absolutely wanted to be the head coach, which we've known that lately, but we didn't know, halfway through the season, we'd never just really publicly heard that. So answers that question for sure. emphatically. And it also probably answers the question of if there's any chance this nationwide search could include Lauren Hibbs. Now, we had mentioned when it started that wasn't likely based on the language Wichita State used. It's certainly not likely now based on the language Lauren Hibbs used in his statement. So I guess that helps us answer, but we did hear from Lauren Hibbs. He tweeted that out. So the search is on now, and the fallout continues for that program with transfers. We'll continue to keep you apprised of any news as it comes to that. When we return on Sports Daily, we will have our Wichita Sports Hall of Fame induction. Paul will get us set up for that and take us through it. That's next. And we'll have much more sports talk coming in hour number 2 as well. Some giveaways to get to, all kinds of fun stuff here on a Thursday edition. It's Albracht and Savage. We'll be back right after this.
Live Out Loud Mornings with Bob and Tom on 97.5 and 1240 KFH. Wichita. KFH.
All right, welcome back in, everybody, to Sports Daily, hour number 2. Kathy Stevens, our Wichita Sports Hall of Fame inductee. We are working on tracking her down, and we'll continue. In the meantime, the IHOP hotline then is open. 869-1240 is that number to call. It's Jacob Albracht. It's Paul Savage. It's a Thursday edition of Sports Daily. Thursdays are always crazy and wild and jam-packed and fun and exciting, because we have lots of guests. We talked to Tim Fitzgerald, our K-State insider. Naquan Tomlin is back for K-State, among other things we discussed with Tim. You can find that on the Odyssey app. Just search KFH. We also talked with our betting insider, Chelsea Messenger, there in hour number 1 to get some angles on the NBA Finals. Let's dive into the NBA Finals just strictly from a basketball standpoint, Paul, here as we get game 1 tonight. Denver won the meetings this season. I just, there's something about Miami, and I guess this is really like, I know we're all looking at Nikola Jokic, and I am too, and I think this is a legacy game for him and, can solidify just how amazing he is and how historically great he likely will be. But I think, Paul, it's just as interesting here, a series for Jimmy Butler, because sometimes, and it doesn't happen very often, but it happens with the greatest players, right? There are players that can will their teams and put them on their back, even when they might be outmatched, to an NBA championship. We saw Michael Jordan do that. We've certainly seen LeBron James do that. Jimmy Butler has that opportunity here. And if Jimmy Butler's greatness is that intangible thing we've liked about, some of the great players, Jordan, Kobe, LeBron, whatever that killer instinct is, that big game, mentality. Butler's, like Jokic, also never had a platform like this where they're clear underdogs by everybody's standard. And they, maybe shouldn't be here on paper, but they are. And he's a big reason for it. Whose legacy will be impacted more by this series one way or the other? Jokic's or Butler's, do you think?
Jokic right now, because obviously he's the favorite. He's the key. I mean, obviously Butler's a key too, but Jokic does so much. Everything around that basketball team hinges on him, offensively, defensively. I don't know that in our lifetime we've seen a big man who passes the ball so well. He does so many things so well, runs the floor, dribbles. I mean, it's an amazing guy. Now, I'm not taking anything away from Jimmy Butler. I mean, he's fantastic. Do I want Butler on my team? Yeah, I want him on my team. But right now, this is going to be Denver's to lose, and it will be one of the upsets of our lifetime if Denver does not win the NBA Finals. It'll just be an upset that we will very rarely see anything like. And but I think that right now, you look at this game, I think, and here's my heart talking, Jacob. Here's my heart talking. I want this to be a fantastic series. I really do. And I think it's going to be a home and home. I think that the Heat will do well at home, but I think they'll probably struggle in Denver. Denver is a tough place to win basketball games. Was this year, has been in the past. So my expectations are home and homes. Both home teams are going to have advantages, whoever's at home.
Well, Miami's not going to be favored in any game.
No,
as long as you don't have some sort of energy.
No, I know
but
that.
I think that the interesting thing is Butler's on total house money. And so when I ask the question of like whose legacy will be impacted more, I think that Butler's legacy won't be impacted at all if they don't win this series.
Well, that's a good point.
Jokic's legacy will be solidified if they do. Jokic's legacy, for all the wrong reasons, will take a massive hit if they don't. And Butler's legacy would be solidified if they won too. I feel like Butler's on house money here, right? Like that's what intrigues me, I think, the most about this series. I'm rooting for Denver. I want Denver to win the series. I want Jokic and his greatness to get justified. But boy, there is a part of me that wants to see if Butler can do that. And if he can, I do think, Paul, that it puts him in this rarefied air with guys that don't do this very often in the NBA, where you can't really define it. Like, I suppose the one difference is like Jordan, Kobe, LeBron, they were all and are all considered the greatest, right? Like by, some Butler's not considered that, but here he is. And if he can win a game or a series like this, it makes me curious. It does. Again, house money. If they lose it, he loses nothing. Jokic has far more to lose in this series than Butler does. Again, we're just talking about legacy, right? Like everybody wants to win, and we know that. We're just talking about the conversations we'll have about these players in the aftermath. That part of it is really, really intriguing to me, just to see if Miami and Butler can make this thing interesting, because Denver's better. I'm with everybody on that. I totally agree. I don't know if they're 8.5 points better at home tonight, by the way, but they're better. I get it. We'll have much more on that as we make our way through. All right. Let's get to a Wichita Sports Hall of Fame induction. We've got Kathy Stevens here. Paul, set us up here for this latest induction.
Well, Jacob, thank you so much for allowing us to induct one more Wichita Sports Hall of Famer right here on Sports Daily. Today, we're going to induct Kathy Stevens, who comes to golf naturally from her father, Shocker Hall of Famer Johnny Stevens. Now, there's some championships involved with Kathy's career. Are you sitting down for this one? Oh, I see you on our streaming. You are sitting down. Good. I wanted you to sit down. Kathy's career includes 3 individual Kansas high school state golf championships, a team championship at Capon, a 1991 Big 8 golf championship while attending the University of Oklahoma. She has 4 Kansas State women championships and 9 Wichita City golf championships for women. My gosh, this lady's a winner. She has really set a high standard for all future lady golfers in this city. And it's an honor and a privilege to present to the listeners of Sports Daily for induction, Kathy Stevens. Kathy, how are you?
Good. I appreciate that little intro. Makes me feel like I was decent.
Well, I think that's probably the case. And, obviously we mentioned your dad. We got to start this out with paying a little homage to your father, Johnny Stevens, who's considered one of the best male golfers of all time in the city of Wichita. Went on to Wichita State, Shocker Hall of Famer, for guys' sakes. Long time ago, we inducted your father into the Wichita Sports Hall of Fame. You probably were at his induction, I'm guessing. But anyway, you come from a great family. What impact did your dad have on your golf career?
Oh, well, he was my teacher. He taught our whole family everything we know. He's a perfectionist and loves the golf swing. So, and just the competitive nature of golf and just everything that golf does for people in life. And so he actually taught all of us everything we know, from the swing to the mental aspect to putting, chipping. And I wouldn't have played if it wasn't for him.
Well, I love that, Kathy, was as a dad who's trying to get 2 daughters to play golf and hopefully play it better than me, but just to play it with them. Like, how special is that early on, just to be able to, like, I just think of, like, vacations, like, all right, see you later, we're going to play golf, right? That's a really cool relationship to be able to have.
Yeah, we only took vacations that surrounded golf, and we just played a lot together. And he still plays with my kids and with my nephew Sam every chance he gets. Every night he's out with my 2 girls playing, and I even play in the evening 9 holes with him still. So it's very special. It's really a neat relationship to have.
When we talk about Kathy Stevens and being inducted into the Wichita Sports Hall of Fame, there's only two women golfers in the Wichita Sports Hall of Fame, Judy Bell, and of course Marilyn Smith, who we lost. Maybe a year or two ago. Wonderful, wonderful ladies. Marilyn was just always so wonderful to me, and a very, very good friend. Talk a little about the legacy of Wichita golf for ladies, as you have now played for many, many years, and you have put your mark on this city with golf. Talk about what's going on in golf with the ladies in this city.
Oh, well, first of all, Marilyn Smith and Judy Bell, I was fortunate enough to meet them when I was younger, and they were unbelievable inspirations to me, not only me, because my dad actually told me everything about them while I was playing, and but to many people around the country. And so it's really neat and special that they are, have Wichita connections. And in the city now, I think there's a lot of great junior girl golfers coming through. And I hope that I've told my children about those two ladies and what they did for golf. And I hope that the other younger generation knows what they did, because they brought golf to the forefront of sports for women. So, it's neat that we're part of that. We're part of Wichita's history, and they were ones that started it.
Well, yeah, and it's women's sports in general that is just exploding right now. Whether it's golf, softball at Wichita State, basketball has always been a big deal here. The evolution of it is fantastic to see, and it feels good to see it, right? Are you pleased with the progress being made? I suppose there can always be more, but it feels like it's in as good a spot or better than it ever has been.
Oh, I completely agree. It's in as good a spot as it can be, and I don't know that it can get any better. I mean, women have been given such a huge opportunity, and golf is just something. It's a life skill that it teaches you so much about responsibility and competition in life, and winning and losing, and integrity and honesty. And it's such a great sport to play and learn, and women have been given huge opportunity right now. I don't think it can get any better.
Well, I see that exactly. I think you're exactly right. And I really need to know at least one thing on your career, and that is, when you were playing, there were some unbelievable women playing professional golf. And growing up, you had the opportunity to see many of those women, some of the greatest of all time. And I'm not taking anything away from Patty Berg or Babes Rackus or Kathy Whitworth. I don't mean to do that, but you came up with some great women golfers. Who did you follow? Who did you kind of like? Who was that one lady on Monday morning you were going to check the newspaper and see how did she do in the tournament she was playing? Who was that one or two ladies that you used to follow?
Well, I followed Anna Castorenstam, and I'll tell you the reason is because I was able in college to play with her. She has no idea who I am, but I knew who she was. And so just being able to compare myself to her while we played, and then after she went on to go pro, and I just loved watching her. I loved her swing. I loved how her attitude, her desire to win. So it was just natural for me to just follow her and see and just watch her. Now, if you were going to ask me who today, I love Nelly Korda. I love her swing. I love that she can hit it far. She just stands out to me more than the other players that are out there.
Right. By the way, you've got a daughter playing. Before we do our induction with you, you just came back from a big tournament for your daughter. You have a daughter playing. What's it mean to you to have your daughter following in your footsteps playing golf?
Oh, I don't know if it's following in my footsteps, but just watching both of them grow in the sport and see that they can succeed and see how they handle defeat, and just being out there with them, it's so much fun. I mean, I can't tell you. It's just a lot of fun to watch. And my dad gets to go, and he caddied for my younger one yesterday in a tournament, and it's just really special. It's just really neat and fun.
Wow, how's that for an advantage, having Johnny Stevens on your bag? Are you kidding? I mean, that doesn't almost seem fair to me in a lot of ways, but
I know,
but that
I
is
know.
so cool. Johnny caddying for your
Yeah.
for his granddaughter. That is
Yep.
that made my day. Jacob, that made
Yep.
my day. But anyway, well, congratulations, Kathy. We're so proud of you and the Stevens family. And even though you're the second Stevens to go in, sorry about that. Johnny went
Yeah.
first. But we're so glad to have you on the show today. And between Jacob and myself, we're grateful to have you and be able to induct you into the Wichita Sports Hall of Fame. So I guess at this moment, let me just sort of officially make this a done deal, and that is Kathy Stevens, you are officially inducted into the Wichita Sports Hall of Fame. You've been nominated and elected into the Hall of Fame, and you now have all the rights and privileges pertaining of your membership into the Wichita Sports Hall of Fame. Congratulations, Kathy.
Well,
congratulations
thank
to
you.
your entire family, and congratulations to Johnny, too. I'm going to throw him in there if you don't mind. But
Yeah.
anyways, we're so proud to have another representative from the Stevens family in the Wichita Sports Hall of Fame. Thank you so much, and congratulations.
Thank you. Well, I appreciate it. Wichita means the world to our family, and so I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kathy. We appreciate it. Tell Johnny, Jacob and Paul said hi.
I'll do it.
Well, thank you so much. How about that right there, Jacob?
That's good stuff.
She's
That's
a golfer,
good
isn't she?
stuff.
I mean,
Oh, yeah.
if you go out and you play around with her, leave your wallet in the locker. Okay, that's
yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I don't bring mine out much. Paul, I'm a much better trash talker than golfer. But
there you go.
When you're at the level like Kathy and those, it doesn't matter. You can talk all the trash you want. Sometimes it's motivating.
Yeah. There you go.
We appreciate Kathy stopping by. Big congratulations to her for the Wichita Sports Hall of Fame induction. Let's take a quick break. We'll come back. Sports Daily rolling through this Thursday edition. As we go, let's give something away here. Why don't we?
Let's do.
Let's give away some ticket vouchers to the Wichita Wind Surge. They're good for any home game you want to go to. So
like it.
We've got them. You pick the voucher, then you get to pick the game, courtesy of us here at Sports Daily and KFH. We'll give those away right now during the break on the IHOP hotline, 869-1240. Paul and I will be back with more Sports Daily. All right, welcome back in, everybody. Sports Daily, KFH. Jacob Albracht, Paul Savage alongside you here. Glad to be here. It's been a jam-packed start to the show. Thursdays always are. We've got guests. We've got all kinds of stuff going on. But the IHOP hotline is open the rest of the way, 869-1240. You can also leave your comments on our video stream there, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. We can get those and chat about them as well. Catch your breath a little bit on a Thursday, Paul, here. DeAndre Hopkins still doesn't have a home. Should he have a home? How much should somebody be willing to pay? And, it's an interesting dynamic, right? All the good teams that Hopkins probably wants to play for can't really afford him. And if he wants that money, he's probably going to have to go to a bad team. This will be an interesting I don't know how this is going to go because it's hard to know. He just signed with an agency, which makes me think he's not going to take a discount here. And in that scenario, he's probably going to have to settle for playing for a team that's not, at least at this point, considered a Super Bowl contender.
Well, this morning, just about 8 o'clock, just about an hour before we came on, I saw an article that the Jets have pulled out of the sweepstakes for DeAndre Hopkins. So the Jets are out. And, I didn't ever think the Jets would be one of those teams. And now I know they're not going to be, but that wasn't the reason I thought. But you still got Kansas City Chiefs. You got the Bills as the front runners.
But they can't pay him.
And the Chiefs can't. The Chiefs can't.
Top dog. Neither can the Bills.
No.
And that's what's interesting about this. Like, if it's going to be one of those teams, and my gut reaction, like right off the hip, right when it was announced, is that, he's going to be a Chief because maybe there's a chance he will do like a prove it deal and reestablish his market value. But man, I just don't know.
Right.
When he signed with the agency and that guy, I'm like, that doesn't seem like discount territory for me. And we're seeing the Chiefs talk up Justin Ross a lot in the last, couple of weeks, which again, like, are they really into Justin Ross or are they just saying that? Like, I don't know, but I have come way off that now. I don't think DeAndre Hopkins is going to be a Chief anymore because I don't know that I think he's going to take a discount. So then it becomes who's going to be willing to pay him, and does the team exist that maybe is a contender, that maybe would pay him? Cleveland still jumps out to me, and the Ravens also. The Ravens in Cleveland, though, have some talented receivers already there. So it's sort of like if you have it, spend it, right? Like, we don't need anything else. We think he could put us over the top because they don't really need another receiver necessarily. The Cowboys sort of need a receiver, but I don't know that they'll be in either. And I don't know that that's a good fit by quarterback to receiver. I don't know, Paul. I mean, he's going to go somewhere. He's too good. I can't get a good feel for it.
Well, Cleveland and the Ravens were the two teams that I would think of if I wasn't thinking Chiefs and Bills. And
the Jets made sense too, but that looks like that ship sailed.
Well, it looks like it, at least as of a couple hours ago. Who knows? They may hop back in. Can I throw out a wild card? Can I throw out Tampa Bay? I want to throw them. I don't know why, but I saw one mention of them on a story about this. And I thought to myself, okay, I don't know if it makes sense, but I mean, there's a lot about this story that makes me shake my head and say, none of this makes sense. With regards to this guy, particularly at his age. I mean, he's not exactly, fresh into the league. I mean, he's up there in age, but I don't know. We'll see what happens. But I think you're exactly right with Kansas City. And if anybody who's a Chiefs fan, was thinking, well, I hope they sign this guy. I don't think it's going to happen. There's too much problem with the cap with Kansas City. I think if they were going to bump the cap, I think they're going to bump it with other players other than him.
Well, they're going to get Chris Jones re-signed.
Yeah.
I mean, just looking at the cap, and I'm using spottrack.com, which is a pretty good place for this, because the NFL salary cap is pretty difficult to understand. But just in cap space, in its simplest metric, Kansas City has the least in football, and Buffalo has the third least. So does Tampa, by the way. I do agree that anybody in the NFC South does make some sense, because that division is absolutely wide open. The interesting thing about that division, though, is Hopkins' clearly stated desire to play with a good quarterback. And on paper, you could maybe consider Derek Carr a good quarterback. And that's why New Orleans has been interested. New Orleans has money, by the way. So do the Panthers have a lot of money, which is sort of interesting on a shorter deal. Tampa doesn't have a lot of money, and Atlanta has some space. So, and I think all four of those teams could justify, right? We think we're good enough to win the division. That is as wide open a division, I think, as there is in football. And it does make sense that he goes to one of those teams in the division. I mean, if you're Carolina and you just invested in Bryce Young, they reportedly here have almost $28 million of cap space. They got plenty of space to go get DeAndre Hopkins. Are you doing Bryce Young a favor by bringing in Hopkins, a receiver of that caliber, or is that sort of a burden to put on a young quarterback to feel the desire to get a receiver? Like, is Bryce Young equipped for that at this point in his career? Like, is he ready to know how to, right, take advantage of a skill set of a guy like Hopkins? I think it's all going to come down to what Hopkins wants. I think any of those teams in the South, I'm with you when you say Tampa, because I think Carolina, Atlanta, or New Orleans make some sense too. I just don't know, like, when you sign an agent, and Hopkins apparently has always represented himself. When you sign an agent, though, that would tell me you're looking to maximize, right, your earning potential. I don't think you sign an agent if you're ready to go in and take a prove-it deal, are you? Like, that doesn't make a lot of sense.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. No. But, and the more I think about this, the more I think there's a wild card with the New Orleans Saints that we've got to think about. Maybe I'm off. Tell me if you think I'm off on that. And that's John Gruden. Reports are John Gruden
going in there.
Going in. He's going to. I don't know that he's going to be.
He didn't have any connections, I don't think, to Hopkins that I know about.
No.
He's
but he does with Derek Carr.
Offensive mind.
But he does with Derek Carr, and so that's part of the reason they want to bring Gruden in is to get that connection made between the offense and Derek Carr, and it makes total sense to me. Now I know that Coach Gruden has said some crazy things and done. I always liked a guy though. I always, his quarterback show, whatever that was called, I can't remember what it was, where they bring a
football personality.
Yeah, as a football personality. He had a show where he'd bring a quarterback and they'd look at film and they do things. They go out and throw the football. I enjoyed that. Jacob, it's not often, but I learned things about the offensive position of quarterback and receivers watching that show. I actually learned stuff because that's how deep and well done it was. It was. I mean, so I just think that possibly it could be that, this is a guy who's going to look at a team with some cap space and go, something, this might be where I want to go because of Gruden. There's going to be some great minds on the offensive side of the football. And it could be, I can tie in with Derek Carr because Derek Carr can get the job done. I was sorry to see him leave Vegas, but something, those kind of things happen. That's the way it goes. But I'll tell you what, John Gruden could be the deciding factor. Now, I could be wrong. I'm just speculating, but Gruden may play a part in this.
Yeah.
Maybe. A lot of things that could play a part right now, isn't there?
Yeah, it just feels so wide open, and that's okay. Like the other part of it is receivers of this age, especially ones that are coming off injury, don't age particularly well. Julio Jones is the most recent example. Julio Jones is a Hall of Famer.
No question.
And, you hit this age at that position and it gets more difficult. And this is why I've always been interested in Hopkins, because DeAndre Hopkins, is productive always, right? Like he's always productive. And he's had the injuries the last 2 years in Arizona, but when he's played, he's been pretty productive, right? And he's always a touchdown guy. What's his health like? Because he's entering his age 31 season here. And just go look at what guys typically do at that age, and it's tough. So I get it for a lot of these teams, but for the teams that what makes the most sense and what's beginning to make the most sense, like if it's not going to be the Chiefs or the Bills, and that seems unlikely. The Jets always to me made the most sense, but they're clearly out. But if it's not going to be the Chiefs or the Bills, I just look at the list. Like if you've got money to spend, there is an appropriate risk level, I would think, in bringing in a guy like DeAndre Hopkins. Detroit, Hopkins could really help them, right? And I know that's been rumored around.
No, it's not going to be Detroit. It's not. I don't believe that there's going to be any interest in him in Detroit
because they're so devoted to running the ball, or
that's part of it. But it's an old school situation, much more of an old school situation in Detroit than it is, and I think that's probably not something he wants to be quite as involved with. It's just not going to be.
I mean, they won't throw the ball as much. I mean, and that's what I mean. Like, if it's just a chance to go get paid and win games, Detroit would make sense, right? He would make them better.
Sure.
He'd give them a good red zone target at the minimum, right? And
okay, I'll buy that.
I don't know. But the problem, like Odell Beckham Jr. just showed us that market value, and I'll take Hopkins over Odell Beckham Jr. like 100 times
right
out
now
of 100.
You would, yes, right,
sure. And OBJ made like 15 million. So I mean, I think that it's not like he's priced out of the market. That's what's so interesting here. If I'm Carolina, I mean, if I'm Chicago, like Chicago could use a weapon to give Justin Fields. That division's pretty open this year now, isn't it? Like, if you're Chicago, are you so far away from the perceived favorite, which would be the Vikings, I suppose, again, or Detroit? But then it comes back to Hopkins. Like, are you satisfied going to Chicago? Because your production's probably not going to be very high in Chicago. So what I mean is, like, I don't understand and have a good grasp on, like, for D-Hop, like, are you looking at this from a right now, or are you looking at this from a bigger picture and trying to get another contract? Because I think those are two different things. There aren't a lot of places where those things can synergize. The Jets were one of them, but they're off the market. I think Cleveland probably still is, and Baltimore probably still is. And if you're D-Hop, I think those would be the two places that you would desire the most. Although Cleveland doesn't have a ton of space. They don't have a ton of space. Baltimore does. I think that, or what are the chances, Paul, it's a team we're not even thinking about? Like, we haven't even considered here. I don't think he'd go back to Houston, by the way.
Well, you got to look at the quarterback. You got to look at,
what about like the Packers? What about right? Like the Patriots. There are teams out there that are interesting. I don't know where this goes. Heck, the Vikings. We just mentioned the NFC North. The Vikings, like, you put him with Justin Jefferson in that group. I mean, he's good enough, Paul, that he's going to make any team better, isn't he?
Well, he is. He's going to make any quarterback better, but he wants a good quarterback. This has already been stated. The reasons
but what's a good quarterback, right?
Well, let's go top 10. If you go top 10, let's go top 10 quarterbacks. That's going to
be tough.
It's going to be a little tougher, and that's why I think the Jets were in this. I think they were a top 5 team before they pulled out of the sweepstakes for Hopkins. But with that being said, it's going to be somebody that has a quarterback. And I'm not saying it's going to be a Patrick Mahomes. There's only a couple of those, and those teams may or may not, decide to, sign him. But, it's going to be somebody. It's going to be one of those guys, one of those quarterbacks. It's going to be one of those guys, a Deshaun Watson, or it's going to be somebody like that, or maybe, the Derek Carrs. It's going to be one of those really good second tier. And I use the word second tier only because you've got such a great high tier with guys like Josh Allen and Mahomes. So it's going to be somebody that has a lot of potential, but it's going to also be somebody that's got to have cap rate. Put all those things together, and then maybe you'll figure out where he's going. but I do not know. We will not know. We will not figure it out until the day he says, hey, everybody, this is who I'm signing with. And then we'll shake our head and go, really? And I'm predicting we'll go, we didn't see that one coming. That's going to be my prediction.
It's a dark horse. I think I'm kind of falling there too. I don't. It's wide open. It is an interesting one with a lot of wrinkles and interesting components to it. But we'll watch it. D-Hop still doesn't have a team. Reportedly, the Jets are out, and it sounds like the Bills might be out too. But I think that he's going to get paid. I think he's going to get paid. All right, let's take a quick break. An NBA coach hiring that is historic in nature. It's an interesting one, but we'll hit on that. We'll talk a little more NBA finals as we make our way through. We'll get back. I want to revisit a couple of just the headlines that came out right at the top there that we mentioned before getting to our break here. We'll do it next. IHOP hotline is open, 869-1240. It's Albracht and Savage. It is Thursday. Be right back. All right, Paul. Welcome back in, everybody. It's Sports Daily. I'm Jacob Albracht. Chad Chambers producing for us. Our thanks to all our guests today, which you can go back and hear on the Odyssey app. Let's go back to Paul, this Bronny James news. This is good stuff for K-State fans here. His season next year will be fascinating. It will be overhyped, I'm sure. It will be amplified, certainly, but it'll be fun, I think. Like, we haven't had, it's been Zion Williamson since we've had a prep player come in with this much hype, and this obviously has an even different component than that. But I've been impressed with Bronny, and I don't follow him on the social media stuff. Like, I don't, but what I do know is, it felt like there was no chance he would live up to the hype, maybe about a year ago this time. And then he went out there and improved his status, and by almost all accounts became a much better player, and is now a legitimate top high school player coming in, and a legitimate NBA prospect, and all of those things. And I suppose if there was ever anybody, wired to handle this sort of attention, it's been him, because he's been getting it forever. And his dad gets it constantly and can coach him through that, and was the most celebrated high school athlete maybe of all time. Arch Manning, maybe in that same mold, but even then, not like LeBron was. Like, LeBron was, he was everything as a prep player. He sort of invented our fascination with prep players, it feels like. But Bronny's handled it well, and man, that's really cool for K-State to share that platform, because it's going to be a big one. It will be as big as any platform. I mean, I would venture to guess, without knowing anything else, Paul, that this will be the biggest headline of the start of the college basketball season. Will be his first game, don't you think?
Well, there'll be every news outlet, every media person of any note will be at that game, just because LeBron's going to be there, and of course his son playing the first college game. So yeah, there's going to be somewhat of an attention getter for K-State, because they're going to get attention that, quite frankly, they may not get much of until the Big 12 season started. So it's going to be huge. It's going to be huge. I always hesitate, though, with all the pressure that comes with being a youngster, with being the son of a guy like LeBron James, and those comparisons. They're going to be made. It's not fair. It's not fair to the kid. But you and I both know those are going to be assumptions and comparisons made to LeBron. They're going to happen. And I feel bad about that for the kid, because he doesn't get to enjoy his freshman year like most freshmen would. But that's what happens when you have a famous dad. But with that being said, it'll be interesting to see how good this kid really is when he starts playing at the D1 level. I think he's going to be pretty good. He's a chip off the old block, more than likely. And I think it's interesting that he ends up at USC. And I think that's kind of smart, because although he may not be there long enough to end up in the Big Ten, I'd sure like to see him play through a Big Ten schedule, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I mean, it feels like he's been improved enough to be a one and done. You never know, though, and his NIL opportunities are going to be tremendous. I don't know. I would say the likelihood of him playing more than one season are very, very low, especially now that he has, by, again, all accounts of people who do this for a living, become a good enough player to be that, right? Like, so I think we're probably only going to get it for 1 year, but I am excited. I enjoyed, like, the Zion Williamson hype train was sort of fun. Like, I don't know that we get that as much as we used to, for whatever reason. It's not as common, maybe, but we don't get those type of, I think the difference between Zion and Bronny is, Bronny is there partly because of who he is and partly because of his ability. Zion, we didn't know, he didn't have a famous dad like LeBron James, obviously. But if you missed it, K-State will get to play USC in the season opener for USC. So that's happening in Vegas. It's one of those early season tournaments, we probably wouldn't pay a whole lot of attention to. But, honestly, though, Paul, like that's kind of a big spot for K-State, too, because Jerome Tang, built all this momentum and everybody fell in love with K-State and him in the NCAA tournament, right? Well, how about this opportunity now? You get a chance. The last thing everybody remembers about K-State is how fun they were and all the dancing and Jerome Tang's, bleeding charisma and, enthusiasm and all these things that everybody fell in love with. And then boom. So they leave college basketball's biggest platform where they became the darling of things, which is remarkable now that you think about it, because there was a true Cinderella in FAU in there. But not a true Cinderella. FAU was very, very good. But in a tournament where we saw teams like FAU and San Diego State make runs, it was K-State, who plays in the Big 12, that became everybody's darling. Anyway, so you leave that, and then you start the next college basketball season, Paul, again on the biggest platform.
Yeah,
That's a pretty big deal for K-State. Don't understate that. Like having those, that much exposure and national eyeballs on you matters a lot. And to go back to back like that, that'll be an interesting spot for K-State, because we don't know, as we talked about with Tim Fitzgerald off the top, we don't know a lot about that roster.
Right. And of course, here's the one thing. There's going to be media similar to like a Final Four at that game. You just know there is.
I think so.
I think that's a real possibility. What would a K-State victory mean to that program over USC with LeBron James's son highlighting the USC squad? I think it's fantastic. I think, the upside on a victory.
I don't know.
Oh, it's got to be.
I don't know how much the I think as much as anything, K-State, whether they win or lose, because we got to see some about their roster, but whether they win or lose, it's a real opportunity, I think, for them, and they'll take advantage because they've done such a good job capitalizing, just to remind people about the direction they're headed. And when you think about a guy like Naquan Tomlin, Paul, who decided to withdraw from the NBA draft and come back with those eyes, where his goal will be to become one of those players, there will not be a better opportunity for Naquan Tomlin to put himself on that NBA radar even further than to play well in that game.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I do.
Like right out of the gates. I don't know that there's anybody with more to gain from that platform than Naquan Tomlin will have. And we get this news the day he decides to come back. He has got to be ecstatic right now, because he's coming back to improve his draft prospect. He's been a draft prospect, Paul. When the season started, it was Naquan Tomlin that was sort of on the NBA radar when you looked at draft boards, because of, his raw potential is all there, right? We talked about it all year last year. Now with another year of seasoning, like we saw Ochai Agbaji skyrocket in his status. Jalen Wilson probably did a little of that. Christian Brown did a little of that. Boy, Naquan Tomlin has the ability to take it even further than those guys. Now, am I saying I think he's going to come out and have that sort of season, right, that we've seen from some of the KU guys, or we saw even from Marquise Noel last year? No, that's probably unfair. But just to scintilize and tantalize those NBA scouts a little bit, and the whole country really, as a player where everyone's like, who is that guy? He looks like an NBA player. He's pretty good. Naquan Tomlin's got tremendous opportunity in all this.
Yeah. And not only that, this is like going in several directions. This is such a big game because of the coverage and all the eyeballs that'll be on. It's important to the coaching staff, how they're perceived in the country. It's important to the Kansas State team overall. And it's important to guys like Tomlin in particular. If you want eyeballs to fix on you and put you on the radar of a lot of teams, or of a lot of opportunity for NIL and that kind of stuff, you got to play well. So this is a huge game in three different ways: team, coaching staff, and individual players. Play well in this game, and it'll pay dividends. Don't play well, and you may not overcome it because you'll be an afterthought.
I don't think there's anything to overcome. It'll just be a missed opportunity.
Missed opportunity is better said. Yes.
Yeah. I don't know that it's going to have a tremendous – it won't have a tremendous impact on this season.
What? Yes, it will. It will. Play well in this game. is like the most important thing maybe for the whole season for Kansas State. I think you're writing that off.
It's a November
I don't
6th
care.
game.
I don't
Now,
care.
You know, they may not get a bigger platform this season for the long-term, you know, the implications are bigger for like Naquan Tomlin. But if Kansas State loses that game, we're not going to look back in February and be like, man, if they'd only won that game against USC.
Maybe.
No. But I think
know.
Naquan Tomlin could look back and be like, I wish I'd have played better in that game.
Yeah, that's for darn sure.
You know, the program could look back and be like, boy, we laid an egg there. We missed an opportunity.
Boy,
but, as far as like resume this year, I don't know how much it'll do. All right, we'll come back. We'll wrap up this edition of Sports Daily. We'll tell you what's on tap today right after this.
Hello, I'm Howard Mackler, founder of Innovation Refunds. You've heard me talking about the payroll tax refund for months. I'm so proud that we've helped over...
All right, everybody, that's a Thursday. Appreciate you joining us here. Our appreciation to Tim Fitzgerald, our K-State insider, Chelsea Messenger, our betting insider, Kathy Stevens, the newest Wichita Sports Hall of Fame induction. You can listen to all those interviews back on the free Odyssey app. Just search for KFH. Coming up today, Jim Rome at 11, Bob and Jeff, Maggie and Perloff, and Zach Gelb at 5. Appreciate you being with us. For Paul Savage, Chad Chambers, I'm Jacob Albracht. We'll be back again tomorrow to wrap up the weekend. Do it again. See you then.